Hello everyone, it's Cake, and it's been a minute, just a a little bit of time since I last showed my face around here. Been busy with uni, and now that uni is finished, I finally have time for my own projects again, and also just time to sit down and play some stuff, which is appropriate since last week the MHRise Sunbreak Demo released, and I've put in a lot more time than I was expecting into it. Last year I released a video going all over my thoughts over the MHRise demo, so I figured it would be fun to revisit that concept with a video for Sunbreak too. While we're doing that, I'll generally give a summary of how each element compares to MHRise, as well as what I think the new stuff brings to the table. To begin, however, I think it's important to understand that since this is, my video with my own opinions and views, it's a good idea first to cover my general opinions of Rise. However, if that's something you know or don't really care about, which is fair, there's timestamps in the description to skip to the stuff that you want to see. So I was incredibly excited for Rise at launch, and needless to say it didn't really meet my expectations. The game ran less than stellar on Switch, the base game's content wasn't really up to scratch, and I didn't enjoy speedrunning it either. However, while these did drag me away from enjoying the game, I've still always respected that Rise does have some incredible strengths, namely like the map design and the music, and on top of this, each weapon type is both easy to pick up and generally a lot of fun to play, so I did eventually come back to the game when it was released on PC to play casually with friends, even if I didn't finish all the content in it this time. I think one of the biggest things that's always frustrated me about Rise was how I adored some of its concepts, like the movement and switch skills, but I was never really satisfied with the execution of them. Powerful silkline attacks like Soaring Kick on Longsword and Impact Crater on Hammer completely dominated the movesets of the weapons they were on, which at high level play, stuff that I generally enjoy doing the most. It reduced the combat down to spamming the same move over and over until the monster died. But Cake, aren't your MHRise runs just spamming the same move over and over? Yes. Shush, there's a difference here, okay? The important difference is that spamming Brave Explosions or Swax in GU is essentially a reward for putting yourself in the state where you can do it. And in order to play like this, you need to first attack the monster enough to build up your Hunter Art gauge, safely actually activate the damn thing, and then keep the momentum in your favor with things like well-placed evades and precise hit zone targeting to actually keep the monster locked down as much as possible. You've got to earn your way to play like this, and I didn't find that with Rise anywhere near as much. In Rise, it's simply a matter of having your most powerful method of play available at all times, and there's not really much the monster can really do about it because it wasn't really balanced very well. You simply spam your choice of like Hammer, Impact Crater, Swag, Zero Sum Discharge, or, literally fucking cheating with the bow. From the first moment you meet the target's gaze to the moment they keel over. Now, granted, of course, not every weapon type played exactly like this, and, more importantly, as the player, you don't have to play like this. However, myself, someone who has the most fun when I get to see big numbers with short intervals between them, I didn't get on with this sort of, meta very well. So, how does Sunbreak tackle this problem? Well, that's something we'll get to as the video continues, and the answer might not be what you expect it is. For now, though, let's start with the breakdown, beginning first of all with how the demo is actually distributed. One of my biggest gripes with the base MHRise demo was how it was actually given out to everyone. We were initially told it would release on a certain day, shortly after a digital event, and that was it. For me, someone stuck in the hellscape known as Great Britain, this date was a little fudged due to time zones, so my first experience with the demo ended up basically staying past the time I assumed the demo would be going live at, and then watching as the Nintendo eShop crashed and burned for about half a day. With the Sunbreak demo, however, things immediately were just better, right out the gate. Once the demo announcement was made, we instantly got given an exact time the demo would go live at, and in a pleasant surprise, it actually went live a little bit earlier too, and I didn't have to faff around with any store crashes this time. The demo rollout was very smooth, and I'm really glad that Capcom actually learned from, a bit of the disaster that was last time. Oh, and the 30 play limit from the previous demo is gone as well, meaning you don't have to reset your save whenever you want to play the demo for an extended period of time. It was generally good stuff all round. With that out of the way, let's actually get into the meat of the new stuff that was added. Before we get to the big shiny new thing, there's a few minor tweaks that I feel make a bit of a big difference as well. You can now engage in a wall run without needing to perform a wire bug move onto it, and that can be toggled both off and on with the additional option of it being only allowed inside or outside of combat. Really nice. Wyvern Ride is now entirely optional, giving you the option of attacking the monster directly for more damage or taking the ride as soon as you want. This can be toggled to either be the same as base Rise's system, where you can attack the monster to engage in Wyvern Riding, or to only engage in your ride when your weapon is sheathed. 2 new types of field pickup wirebugs and axes, gold and red. Gold increases the amount of shiny drops you get from white and red attacks, and red increases the amount of Punisher damage by about double. Some Siltbines have also had their cooldowns and even wirebug costs adjusted for a little bit of, that quality Capcom balancing, though it isn't immediately apparent from the demo where each set innately has the skill Wirebug Whisperer at level 3. Some weapon motion values have also changed, though it should be noted that this won't reflect the final version of the game we get at launch. The biggest addition to everyone though is Switch Skill Swap, letting you have 2 loadouts of Switch skills that you can swap between on the go whenever you want. Didn't really realise how much I would like this when it was first revealed, but after spending a lot of time messing around with it this week, I've really come to appreciate what it brings to the table. The UI that accompanies it is a little bit on the messy side, however you can adjust how long it displays for, or even if you want it to display at all. I'd recommend myself having it there while you're learning to use the Switch Skill Swap though. The swap itself is performed by holding down left trigger and pressing both attack buttons. The input can be a bit on the weird side to perform, but thankfully you can also assign it to your choice of, either the action bar or radial menu, the latter of which is what I've gotten used to using it on now. After a short little animation, your moveset will swap to a different loadout, so switch skills and Siltbines, both perfectly customizable, and after the animation plays you can also perform Evade. The Evade itself has plenty of iframes, but I've mostly found it's better for repositioning rather than just outright avoiding attacks. I think some weapon types will get a lot out of Switch Skills Swap. While I haven't been using it extensively for them, I've been watching speedruns of notably weapons like dual blades, where the swap is being engaged really actively, and link that run in the description if you want to see what I'm talking about. I do think that some weapon types will mostly still be using one loadout, only situationally switching to a secondary loadout under certain conditions like an extended topple. Overall though, I really like this edition. I don't really have anything negative to say about it. Okay, in just a moment we're going to move on to the weapon overviews, but just before that I want to take the time to say that if you want to see each run using the background footage, there's going to be links to the raw recordings in the description. I know I'm not exactly an expert at all weapon types, but hopefully I've shown off enough about each to provide a worthwhile watching experience. If that's not enough for you though, I'll be referencing speedruns from this first week of the demo that should provide an excellent example of how new versions of each weapon type can be played. That being said, let's move on to the first of the 14 weapon types. Greatsword. Greatsword's received a few new additions, however none of them really changed the feel of the weapon in my opinion. In the build-up to release we were shown a new Siltbine and a new switch skill, and Capcom of course seeing the response to this, rename the Strong Arm Stance Siltbine to Hysteria, reflecting my own doom posting about the state of Greatsword. While we don't get to try out Surge Slashes in the demo, we do get to try out Hysteria, and it's fine, I guess. The activation on it isn't anywhere near instant, which I like quite a lot. It has to be done at least somewhat deliberately, although it's still fairly easy to go from a misinformed charge slash into a counter. The move costs 2 wirebugs, but they're on a really fast cooldown, so I find myself asking why not just put it on 1 long cooldown. Having it on 2 makes it significantly less impactful to your resources, especially if you've picked up an extra wirebug on your way to the master. Otherwise it's essentially business as usual, no real meaty changes to the weapon's base moveset from what I can see, aside from Hunting Edge now costing 1 wirebug to perform, which is neat. The speedrun I've linked below is of course from the one and only Bomb, and it's a 4-player run versus Astalos that shows how much Hysteria can be activated through clever item use, with some incredible synchronized teamwork to boot. Longsword is the first weapon type where switch skill swap really becomes a game changer, I feel. Having access to both Sakura Slash and Soaring Kick makes it really easy to build up and spend your spirit gauge, though I should mention that Soaring Kick recharges a lot slower than it used to. Again, it's a little hard to tell since all the sets in the demo had Wirebug Whisperer on them, but I'd imagine it will make Helmbreaker spam a little bit less prominent in the full release, or, I hope. Big new Siltbine we can play around in the demo is Harvest Moon, which enhances counter damage by a little bit. In never really used this one, to be honest. Being trapped inside the circle is objectively hilarious, though. Still, it does replace Serene Pose, which I was never really using much to begin with, so I think maybe I'll mess around a bit more and see how it goes. It does cost 2 wire bugs, though, and I think most of the time you want to be saving those for Sakura Slash and Sword Kick. The weapon as a whole still seems like it's that strong mix of, easy to pick up and incredibly high damage, so I'll probably just keep watching speedruns using a Longsword to see how people are using the new Silkbind. And, the speedrun that I've linked below is from Urim, and it shows great use of Harvest Moon as well as Switch Skill Swap. Okay, Sword and Shield. Destroyer Oil is back. It's also locked to a Silkbind for some fucking reason. Yeah, I'm a bit miffed about this still, to be honest. Back in GU, Sword and Shield having access to a wide variety of oils was a major reason that the weapon stood out so much. Plus it allowed access to essentially a whole different array of playstyles and benefits. Here in Sunbreak though, we only have Destroyer Oil, which is arguably the most bland of the oils from GU, and it's another situation where I can point to an addition and go, it's fine, I suppose. I don't really feel it adds much, but it sure is an addition to the weapon's moveset. It does find itself on the same input as Shoryugeki, which is a bit unfortunate, so that's even more of a reason not to really want to use it, since Shoryugeki is the weapon's main primary source of damage in Rise. Aside from that, however, there's not really much else that I feel is relevant to report. The weapon is still the go-to for beginners, and it's clearly still viable at high level. The link below will be a speed rise early in the week by Hanku versus Malzeno, which I'd highly encourage you watch to see how much damage this weapon can put out. Okay, so for starters, my Dual Blades footage is versus Izuchi, which I kind of regret. I've actually started playing the weapon casually a lot more, so I probably should have done a longer hunt, but I've already recorded over 70 gigs of footage for this damn video, so I'm gonna pass on recording more. It might be that I just didn't play duels as much during base Rise, but I actually really like this iteration of the weapon type. The new addition being Spiral Slice from GU is an extra bonus as well, and it feels just as amazingly satisfying here as it did in that game. Cooldown is short too, so it mostly just becomes part of your moveset instead of a big dedicated move. The damage is obviously a little bit low to compensate for that, but I think it's a fair trade-off. Duels are another weapon that benefit immensely from Split Skill Swap, and I think my footage probably doesn't show it too much, so I really implore you to watch the run that I've linked in the description from speedrunner Yuki, where they near constantly swapping movesets on the fly for each situation they find themselves in. It's a genuinely incredible run, especially if you're using mechanics that not many people can say they're good at yet, so if you liked duels in Rise and are enjoying them in Sunbreak, you owe it to yourself to check the run out. Hammer, sure, is still impact crater spam. At the very least this time a few small adjustments, such as Water Strike granting full charge for Courage Mode, allowing it to chain into impact crater much easier, because Hammer absolutely needed that. The new addition is Impact Burst, which is a 1 wirebug charge Silkbind that makes each attack landed produce a small shockwave. It's incredibly effective at getting KOs while also adding a substantial amount of damage, and I personally think it's a lot of fun to use. However, it does replace Impact Crater, so if Hammer players want that constant uptime while still dealing the huge damage with Impact Crater, they'll probably be skill swapping often. The run I've linked below is from Chinese speedrunner Fudisha, and it does a great job at showing off the utility of Impact Burst while still proving Impact Crater is just as strong as it was in the base game. Oh, and the video thumbnail is a work of art too. Unlike the base Rise demo, I really don't see enough people talking about Hunting Horn this time around, despite the fact that the horn in the demo has a fucking sharpness restoration song. Like, what the fuck? I've literally never had to sharpen in the demo of this horn, and it's kind of insane. That aside though, I still think Rise Hunting Horn and Sunbreak's horn by extension is a really damn fun time. I know some people still have their annoyances with how Rise changed the weapon type, but I'm one of the guys who really like the direction that it took. The new toy to play with is Silkbind Shockwave, which is identical to the Hammer Silkbind. It's a bit disappointing, but it doesn't take away from how fun it is. Hunting Horn could already pump out KOs incredibly fast, and I think this only adds to that. The damage isn't exactly high class, however, so I think that makes it a little bit different. Hammer Silkbind does extra damage and less KO, but the Hunting Horn Silkbind is almost all KO. I feel like Capcom's always tried to push the fact that Hunting Horn is a support weapon in their game design, but always tried to dispute that fact wherever you look. The new stuff added in Sunbreak, with the added potential of a crazy new song on the demo horn, is a good step towards what Hunting Horn really should be, in my opinion, which is a weapon that offers useful support in the way of KOs and passive, non-obtrusive buffs, all while beating the target's head in. The run I've linked below by Barisu shows how excellent this can be for solo play as well. Okay, first of all, I'm so incredibly bad at Lance that I called in a very good friend of mine, Riot, to record the footage that you're seeing right now. He's much better at Lance than I am, so please give him some love for stepping in so you don't just have to watch nothing but triple stabs. Because of that, though, it's a little hard for me to give my own opinion on Lance beyond, damn, this weapon do be poking. But at the very least I can say the new additions are alright. More directly offensive moves is always a nice thing to have. However, I will now use this time to talk about one of my biggest gripes that I've had with the demo, and it's because something hasn't been fixed. Moves like Lance's Anchor Rage and Gunlance's Guard Edge put you in this guard point state where you'll block a single hit and you'll have the chance to retaliate. This is pretty cool, it's an excellent way to keep up your offense, rewards you for knowing the target's attack timings and patterns. I like it a lot. However, against attacks that have multiple hitboxes, it just doesn't fucking work sometimes. Needs to know what attacks you can't guard point because they just go through your defensive option is bluntly pretty bad design. This was an issue in base Rise, and it's still an issue here in Sunbreak. The fact that they haven't fixed it means that Capcom either hasn't seen it as an issue yet and will hopefully fix it later, or it will be like Bow cheating out a whole extra attack and it's not going to be fixed for the literal entirety of Rice's lifespan, where I can only really assume it's intentional. Either way, if this isn't fixed in the final release of the game, I'll only say the following: thanks, I fucking hate it. Now that I've done my complaining, I'll point you towards this Lance vs Astalos run by Francesco Altair, and of course the run used in my background footage here by Riot will be in the playlist in the description too. Alright, time to talk about my beloved son, Gunlance. I still have the same high praises to sing when it comes to how fun the weapon is to play, but this time it's actually backed up with the fact that Gunlance actually has some excellent damage output now as well. Buffs have been delivered to the damage of shelling in general, as well as Weapon Fire and the Slap Lance moves, and I can definitely already feel their effectiveness in the demo. This absolutely gives me hope that Gunlance will be a little bit more viable in the full game, but of course I'm gonna remain skeptical until I get to try it myself. The big shiny new Silkbind doesn't disappoint either. It's called Bullet Barrage, and it unloads all of your ammo, fires Weapon Fire, uses Worm Stick all in one go. It does a metric fuck ton of damage, and the cooldown isn't too bad either. Notably, it also reloads everything before use, including resetting your Wyvern Fire cooldown at the cost of a slightly longer startup. The move also has super armor and it covers a lot of ground, so yeah, I absolutely love it. While we can't play around with it in the demo, Erupting Cannon is a new switch skill that I'm hoping works like Frontier's Thermal Blade, where melee is enhanced and maybe sharpness loss is negated for a limited amount of time. Buffs to Slap Lance might be against what I really want, but if I'm having to manage the uptime of Erupting Cannon, you know, it's engaging, then I'll probably enjoy it. No complaints at all bar my gripe that I have guard points. All the additions are excellent. The run that I've linked below is from the God of Gunlance Rio. His management of the ground splitter buff and his use of bullet barrage is perfect, and he shreds through Malzeno in this sub 7 minute solo run. Switch Axe was, and I'm not making any sort of sweeping statement here at all, totally not in any way, completely ruined in 5th gen by making the entirety of the game plan about 0 fucks given discharge and tanking hits while dealing insane damage instead of the, you know, simply sublime and untouchable game plan of 4th gen Brave Swax. Sunbreak adds to this by giving Swax a counter with barely any cooldown that does tons of damage while instantly putting it into out of state to deal more damage and, you know, have instant access to ZSD. Soaring Wyvern Blade was buffed to have a short cooldown, Invincible Gambit and Switch Charger still allow you to ignore engaging with game design to keep mashing buttons, so what do I think about it in Sunbreak after hating it in World and Rise? I fucking love it, somehow. The new counter is incredibly satisfying to pull off and is punctuated by the most meaty sound effect I've ever heard. Moving around and repositioning with Switch Skill Swap and Switch Charger is honestly really fun. Soaring Wyvern Blade makes you feel like an acrobatic god. It works great as a finisher with ZSD, which while I still prefer Condensed Element Discharge, it somehow feels a lot more fun for me here. Invincible Gambit is, actually, I still don't like that one. My point is I'm really surprised just how much my opinion of the weapon type as a whole had changed compared to World of Base Rise. The amped element counter is less of a counter and more of a parry. An extra button press needs to be timed for when you're about to get hit, and the wind up before you can press is actually fairly lengthy, so it's not the sort of thing where you can just mindlessly press to avoid taking damage. Still find it weird that it's like Hysteria, where it uses 2 wirebugs but places them on an incredibly fast cooldown, to the point where you've already got one back before the counter animation is even finished in most cases, but maybe that's something that'll be adjusted in the full game. Unfortunately, CD is still left in the dust of ZSD, and it isn't really viable at all. ZSD is still the damage king, but after a successful counter it still feels a lot more, you know, integrated into the moveset instead of being the only thing you work towards and use. But yeah, I'm overall very happy that I can actually enjoy my favourite weapon type again, and even if I still think it flies in the face of what I should enjoy, I can't deny that I'm having a lot of fun with it. And who knows, maybe the caster monsters in Master Rank will actually be able to deal with ZSD now. The run I've linked below is a staggering sub 4 minute run by Semi-Maru versus Astalos, and it's a good reminder that Swax is always going to be pumping out incredibly fast times. Insect Glaive is another weapon type where I really did not like its 5th generation iteration, and again Sunbreakers made me come around to it. Aerial attacks are a lot stronger now. Diving Wyvern I believe is a pinch stronger too. The new Silkbind to play around the demo is Awakened Kinsect attack, which is almost like a weird bootleg version of Extract Hunter from GU. However, instead of gathering all of your buffs in one go, it spends them to do a lot of damage but also close the distance. It's alright, but yeah, it's not the edition that's got everyone talking. You've probably heard by now, but instead Glaive got a new tool that allows it to pump out thousands of damage in one go with Dust Explosion. Using this while accumulating Kinsect dust from attacking, condense all the dust in one location and makes it explode, dealing more damage the higher concentration of dust there is. Probably getting toned down the full game, but there's no denying it's objectively hilarious to see monsters getting domed from just a few stray air particles. Aside from that, weapon feels good to play and I've enjoyed my time with it. If you want to see some high level gameplay, there's a run by Pochi in the description, as well as a showcase from the Elixir team with Malzeno dying to dust explosions in just over 2 minutes. Next up is Charge Blade, which I'm still generally whatever about. The Rise iteration of the weapon still feels a bit clunky to me, however the extra addition of Ready Stance being used as a quick cancel option is pretty cool, though I'm interested to see how much it's used at high level play. Beyond that though, I've been seeing a lot of people who play more casually are having a hard time finding a use for this move when counter P performance exists, which I can only hope they experiment more using it as a cancel option in combos and not just a weaker parry that costs 1 wire bug instead of 2. Struggling to come up with much to say here, but I guess that if you liked Charge Blade and Rise, you'll probably still like it here, and if you didn't, I don't really think much of it has changed to become a weapon for you. If you do want to check out some good Charge Blade gameplay, however, there's a run by Iwashi in the description versus Malzeno. I'm going to cheat and put both the Bowguns into one section, since I don't do a lot of gunning in 5th gen, so I can't really pinpoint where everything's changed. Light Bowgun feels basically identical to me, though I do really like new counter Soap Bind. Timing on it is quite tight, and damage is fair. The weapon type still feels good to play, and I'd imagine it will continue being pretty damn good as well. I do have a little bit more to say about Heavy Bowgun, if only because of how hilarious the new additions are in concept. The only one we get to mess around with in the demo is Setting Sun, which enhances Pierce Ammo. Pierce Ammo that has generally been the be-all and end-all of fucking ridiculous damage output in most other games. However, since Sticky and Cluster are so good in Rise, they've been going out of their way to try and bring Pierce onto the same level, and based on the runs I've been watching, it has not worked in the slightest. I'll have to see if the full game, if Crouching Fire makes any sort of difference, which is the other new addition. It probably will, but now at least I can point and laugh at it, to be honest. The runs I've linked below are both from Tatsufi, both versus Malzeno, and he's a runner you should be watching anyhow for his brilliant times over the past generation. Bow is repenting for its crimes of being objectively the strongest weapon in Rise by getting basically no meaningful additions. I'm personally fine with this, it didn't need them. Butcher's Bind is a new Soap Bind we get to try. It's not really something I see getting a lot of use. Aerial Aim is still very strong, and Butcher's Bind is on the same button as that, so you have to choose between either one, and yeah, you're probably going to be going with Aerial Aim most of the time. The weapon still shits out damage if you so much as point your reticule dismissively at the target, so yeah, that is what it is. Big shout outs though to the demo loadout actually being pretty good this time, and I think I can say that for each weapon, most of all the gunner ones, they're really well crafted and I've enjoyed using them, even if I don't think I'll put much time into them into the full game. The final run of this video that I've linked in the description is from Shill, and they put on a really good performance versus Malzeno. Definitely check it out. That finishes my thoughts on all the weapons. Generally, overall, I wouldn't say there are any I dislike, which is an achievement in and of itself. For the most part, each addition makes sense, and even maybe where it doesn't, to me, I'm fairly confident someone will be able to find a use where I couldn't. However, while each weapon and type is important to go over, I think it'd be amiss if I didn't also cover the 2 new fights in the demo, but more importantly than that, I think I need to cover the new iteration of the 2nd generation jungle map, and what a fucking fantastic job they've done with it. I think one of the biggest things I have to commend Rise for is how it took 2 areas from games that are pre-4th generation and added verticality to them much better than any 4th generation map did. Both Sandy Plains and Flooded Forest are fundamentally very flat areas in their base games, and while I wouldn't call either especially mountainous, verticality is added to them in Rise in a fairly non-intrusive way. Taking it a step further, Sunbreak's jungle map adds a lot of verticality, which is normally a cause for concern considering how generally flat the original map was, but I think they absolutely nailed it. The center of the map is complete with a real skyscraper of a tree in the middle, which is all completely scalable, and beneath that is a great selection of both open cave areas and much tighter exploration dedicated spaces. The vistas both underground and above ground are fantastic, and looking at some of the sunsets I see while sitting on the coast of this map really makes me question how anyone even remotely thinks Rise is a bad looking game visually. Of course, none of this means anything if it's not actually good to traverse and fight in, and thankfully it's great in both of those aspects. Travelling from one side of the area is made easy thanks to really quite surgical great wirebow placement, and beyond that each area has at least 2 or 3 connections, so it's fairly easy to run where you need to be as well. With the sole exception of Area 9, which is a cramped corridor piece of shit, the entire map is pretty superb to fight in. No obtrusive ledges, lots of clear views, great placement of interactable terrain. Notably, actually on that note, it also features breakable boulders to drop down, which Rise didn't really have until now, so it's nice to see that return from WoW. The remix of the music is superb as well, not really a surprise considering Rise's track record of just incredible music, and overall I think this is easily the best of the revamped areas in Rise, and probably one of my favourite areas in 5th gen altogether. Astalos is the last member of Generation's Fated War to make it over to 5th gen, and no, I'm not 100% forgetting anyone on purpose, not at all, no way. How could you accuse me of such a thing? That's ridiculous. I mean, look, Capcom, look, we've got 3 of them. You can keep that one in gen. That's fine. No, seriously, just please keep gaming from that game, Capcom, I'm begging you. For the most part, this fight feels straight out of Generations, albeit a little faster with a few new moves here and there. Some of these moves are taken from Astalos' Deviant, Bolt Reaver, and they slot into the moveset really well. I think it's safe to say both myself and everyone else who played the older games had a slight flashback where we saw it start to do the lightsaber, and yeah, thankfully it works out really well in the moveset. It does have a brand new move, which is an aerial finisher that can cover a fairly wide range, can be rolled through fairly easily, and I haven't seen, had any experience of it crossing up on guards or any other sort of traditional Rise defensive jank, so it's a good addition by me. The music is still good, but I think the biggest standout is the really quite incredible visual glow up. The monster's wings now actually reflect like a dragonfly's wings, and the charge state now mixes between these incredible vibrant greens and more muted yellow hues. Genuinely, take a bit of a time out from your next hunt just to admire the work done to make Astalos look as stunning as possible. You'll really appreciate it. As much as I like this fight, though, there's no denying it's been overshadowed by the real star of the show, and honestly one of my favourite fights in any Monster Hunter game right now. 5th generation is currently 4 for 4 on great flagship monsters right now, and I think Malzeno might even be in new peak. The fight encompasses the exact kind of style I love in these games, both you and the monster going at each other with just pure, unfiltered aggression. Malzeno's entire fight is designed around dodging and responding to incredibly deadly attack strings, and then being rewarded with a fairly hefty punish window. Knowing what you can achieve in this punish window is probably the most important thing, as every weapon can get in a boatload of damage if they know what to go for. Experimenting is definitely the key, and you'll be surprised with how much damage you can get in. At the same time, Malzeno does a ton of damage to you, and while I know this is a beefed up demo version of the monster, I really hope this damage is at least somewhat kept. One thing that won't change, however, is just how in your face this monster is at all times. He has these big piercing wing strikes like Valstrax that close the distance incredibly fast, same for his pounces and the tornado charge. His tail attacks can strike you from range, and he even has a few projectiles like his area-wide power wave to keep you busy while you're trying to heal. The kicker to all of this is the new status he brings, Blood Blight. Blood Blight works a little bit similar to Poison at first, draining your health slowly. However, this health can be recovered by attacking Malzeno, encouraging that you actually stay close and continue your offense. As well as this, all healing items have their effect reduced, and trust me, the feeling of dread I got when a max potion barely healed half of my health was fucking terrifying, actually. All of this, however, isn't even the best part of this fight, and while it's already a perfect mechanical recipe for me to enjoy, the fight really starts when he enters his Blood Rage state. Gunlance Gaming, you fucking know it. Ooh. Okay. What the fuck? Sorry, did my man just fucking teleport? Yeah, this fucker actually starts teleporting, and it's fucking brilliant. Each teleport is punctuated by a distinct sound effect, helping you to immediately be on alert when a second follow-up is coming, and on that same note, nearly everything he does is doubled up in this state, making his tail slams into teleporting double slams, his wing strikes will attack twice in succession, and even his power wave goes off twice. The biggest addition to his moveset is tied directly into his new teleport too, and it's a move that first teleports him directly on top of you, and then he does an AoE slam lift. Doesn't one-shot you, will leave you bloody close. However, in return for the incredible burst damage he gets from this, his punish windows become even longer, and you'll need them because the only way for him to access his Blood Rage is to either take enough damage for a Volcana-like Aura Break, or have his rage last long enough that he'll perform this really quite deadly area-wide nuke before calming down. The fight is also brought up even further with simply immaculate sound design, both for the aforementioned teleport bursts and his projectiles and tornado charge. Encompassing all of this, however, is one of the best pieces of music I've ever heard in a Monster Hunter game, and I think it all adds up together to produce one of the finest fights that the series has to offer right now. So to close this out, I want to bring you back to that question that I asked at the start of the video, and I feel it really is an important one, and it's how does Sunbreak tackle my problems with Rise's combat? And if you've been paying attention to the points I've raised, you might have an idea of the answer. It doesn't. Okay, so if that's the case, let's look at a new question. If MHRise Sunbreak does not fix my issues with MHRise, why am I having so much fun? And I think after however many years of taking Mono seriously, both in the sense of speedrunning, streaming, playing with friends, playing solo, theory crafting, build crafting, optimizing, every single little thing I do, I think I have the answer for that as well. I don't give a shit. It's all fine and good to critique Rise, and by extent Sunbreak, over the game that it is, and all the steps back in my opinion that it's taken. However, ultimately, if I'm still having a fun time, why should I care? Still think GU is one of the best games outright I've ever played, yet its shitty deviant leveling system and its redundant weapon style combination problem has never stopped me from enjoying it. Even if Rise's problems are more in my face, I'm still able to sit down both alone and with friends and simply have a great time. It might end up being that you think this reason to be excited for Sunbreak is a little bit of a cop-out, you know, a little bit of copium huffing, but frankly, you're probably right. But right now, my reason to be excited about Sunbreak is that I simply get to enjoy what my friends are enjoying again, and a big part of that is I simply don't give as much of a shit as I used to. I'm looking forward to Sunbreak releasing, and that's not a statement I figured I would have said this time last year. hey, if you enjoyed this video, consider sticking around by joining our Discord in the description. I still stream frequently, and you can find the link to that down below as well, and while I don't think I'll be able to stream all of my first Sunbreak playthrough, I'll be doing my best to play there with my friends. I'm going to try and get some videos out both on my recent Metal Gear Rising stream and not so recent Celeste stream, so if that interests you, I'd appreciate it here if you subscribed here on YouTube as well. With that, I don't really have anything else to say, and I'll hopefully see you around. Take care, everyone.